Ashley's going to do great things as our new regional operations director. My name is Ray Thompson. I'm 48. Carl Brennan just handed 5 years of my work to his 24-year-old daughter who'd been here 4 months. This was complete bullshit. Conference room smelled like burnt coffee and broken promises. Everyone clapped. I clapped too. Had to. Ashley smiled like she'd earned something. Fresh UT business diploma. 0 real experience. Nothing but her last name. Carl stood there grinning like he'd just solved world hunger. His daughter, his little princess. Everyone knew it. Nobody talked about it. Ray's been invaluable getting Ashley up to speed, Carl said. Like that made it better. Like 5 years of perfect reviews and working weekends was just training for his kid. I nodded, smiled, happy to help. Meeting ended. People shook Ashley's hand. I gathered my stuff. Moved slow, my head was clear now. Like when you wake up at 3 a.m. and suddenly know exactly what's been eating at you for months. Carl caught my arm. Ray, stick around. We stood alone. He loosened his tie, tried to look sorry. Carl was 54, gut hanging over his belt, thinning hair combed over to hide the bald spots. Got his job when his father-in-law retired. Same damn thing he just pulled with Ashley. I know this might surprise you, he said, but Ashley brings fresh perspectives. Sure, fresh perspectives. That's what they call nepotism now. You understand, right? Nothing personal. I looked at him, really looked at him. I understand perfectly. He relaxed. Good. You're valuable, Ray. Really valuable. Valuable. Not valuable enough for the promotion. Valuable enough to train his daughter. I'd heard enough. 22 years Army Corps of Engineers taught me 2 things. Logistics win wars, and good soldiers don't abandon their posts. Maybe that was my problem. I was still fighting like a soldier when I should have been thinking like a commander. In the Army, when supply lines broke down, people died. Here at Irongate Industries, when supply lines broke down, production stopped and companies lost millions. Same principles, different stakes. I learned supply chain management, moving equipment across Afghanistan, coordinating convoys through hostile territory, making sure forward operating bases had everything from ammunition to medical supplies. You don't get second chances when soldiers are counting on you. That mindset never left me. Started at Irongate Industries March 2019, right after my divorce finalized. Sophie was 14 then, needed stability. Industrial equipment distribution across the Southwest seemed solid, something to build on. Steady work that paid $68,000 and let me sleep at night without wondering if the company would exist tomorrow. Carl hired me himself, shook my hand, said that they needed someone with my experience. I'd spent 15 years at my previous company before budget cuts killed my position. At 43, starting over sucked. But Carl made it sound promising. We're growing fast, he said during the interview. Lots of room for advancement for the right people. I became the right guy. Worked weekends when shipments were late. Stayed late when customers had emergencies. Drove to job sites across 4 states when equipment failed. Built relationships with suppliers from Phoenix to Houston. Applied everything the Army taught me about logistics coordination to civilian supply chains. Performance reviews were perfect. Carl always smiled. Always promised bigger things. Your management material, Ray. Just be patient. Patient. I was good at being patient. My daughter Sophie visited every other weekend. She was smart enough to see when her dad looked tired. Sometimes she'd find me at the kitchen table Sunday mornings, laptop open, work emails. Dad, it's the weekend. Just catching up, building something good here. She'd roll her eyes, but she understood. Her mom remarried an accountant who worked reasonable hours and coached soccer. I was the dad who worked too much but never missed child support payments. Never missed school plays. Had $1,400 alimony payments every month that reminded me why this job had to work out. My 401k was finally recovering from the divorce. House payments would be done in 12 years if I could just keep climbing. Sophie would need college money soon. Real money. The kind that comes with director-level salaries. Her grades were good enough for UT, but even in-state tuition was $12,000 a year. I wanted better for her than student loans. Dad, you work harder than anyone I know, Sophie told me last month. When you get that promotion, can we finally take a real vacation? I'd promised her Disney World when I made director. Now I'd have to explain why that wasn't happening. When I told Sophie about the possible promotion 6 months ago, she got excited. My dad's going to be a director, she told her friends. Smart kid, saw right through my careful optimism to the hope underneath. Now I'd have to explain why her old man wasn't management material after all. First problem showed up 8 months ago. Carl mentioned his daughter might join the company. Smart girl, just graduated UT. Business degree. I nodded, thought nothing of it. Companies hire graduates all the time. Start them entry level. Let them learn from the ground up. But Ashley didn't start at the bottom. Started in the office next to Carl's with the title operations specialist and a salary I could only guess at. Carl introduced her around like visiting royalty. Ashley's going to observe our processes, learn how we do things. Ashley observed by sitting in my client calls, taking notes while I explained vendor negotiations that took me years to understand. Asked questions that showed she didn't understand the basics of just-in-time delivery systems, load optimization, or emergency backup protocols. But she was polite. Said yes, sir, and thank you like her mother raised her right. I trained her because that's what you do. Help the new person. Even when the new person's last name is Brennan. Even when her daddy signs your checks. Even when you start to suspect where this is heading. The Army taught me to document everything. Every supply request. Every equipment failure, every protocol deviation. Details save lives in combat, and they save careers in corporate America. So I started keeping records. Not because I was planning anything, just because old habits die hard. I knew for sure 4 weeks ago. Stayed late finishing quarterly reports, going through vendor performance metrics. Supply chain efficiency numbers that showed our region was performing 23% above company average. Office was empty except cleaning crew. Headed to break room for coffee when I heard voices from Carl's office. Door was cracked open. Hallway carried sound better than people realized. The board's going to ask questions, Carl was saying. Ashley's only been here 3 months. Deeper voice, older, Steve Reynolds from corporate. You said Ray was ready for promotion. Ray's solid. But Ashley's family and she's got the degree. Board likes degrees. What about Ray's experience? Carl laughed, not mean. Not kind either. Ray's a good worker. Reliable. But he's not executive material. He'll keep doing what he's doing. Make good money. Everything works out. I stood in that hallway 30 seconds, listening to them plan my future. Ashley would get Henderson's position. The same position I'd been training for since 2019. I'd train her, support her, pretend to be grateful. Ray won't cause problems, Carl continued. He's got a daughter, house payments, alimony. He needs this job. He'll fall in line. He'll fall in line. Like I was some horse being broken to saddle. Like 5 years of loyalty had earned me the right to be grateful for scraps. I walked away quiet. Didn't want them to hear my footsteps. Went back to my desk, saved my work, left the building, drove home in complete silence. Couldn't sleep that night. Kept thinking about Carl's words. My ex-wife always said I was too passive. You let people walk over you, Ray. Stand up for yourself for once. Maybe she'd been right about that. In the military, chain of command was sacred. You followed orders, trusted the system, believed merit would be recognized. But this wasn't the Army. Next morning, I came to work different. Started watching Ashley closer. Noticed how Carl included her in executive meetings while keeping me focused on day-to-day operations. Saw how other managers started deferring to Ashley on decisions that should have been mine. But I also started seeing things Ashley couldn't handle. Like the day Cooper Industries called with a critical equipment failure at their Phoenix plant. Their main hydraulic press was down, costing them $50,000 every hour they couldn't manufacture. Ashley took the call, promised to look into it, then spent 20 minutes searching through supplier databases she didn't understand. I stepped in, called our emergency parts supplier in Tucson, arranged helicopter delivery of the replacement hydraulic cylinder within 4 hours. Cooper's plant was back online by end of day. Ashley thanked me, but I could see the panic in her eyes. She had no idea how close we'd come to losing a $2 million annual account. That's when I started documenting everything. Not just my own work, but Ashley's mistakes. The confused emails to suppliers. The missed deadlines. The client complaints that Carl never heard about because I fixed them before they escalated. My military training kicked in. Document everything, establish patterns, build evidence. Sophie noticed the change at home. Dad, you seem different lately. Are you okay? We were having dinner at her favorite burger place. She'd grown up so much these past years. 17 now. Thinking about colleges, making plans I was desperate to fund. Just work stuff, honey. Nothing for you to worry about. Is it about that promotion? Mom said you were hoping to get promoted soon. Her mom, my ex-wife. Still talking about my career like she had a stake in it. It's complicated. Dad, can I ask you something? Sophie set down her burger. Why do you always make excuses for people who treat you badly? That hit harder than Carl's overheard conversation. What do you mean? At work with Mom during the divorce, even with my stepdad when he makes those comments about your job. You just take it. You're the smartest, hardest working person I know, but you act like you don't deserve good things. 17 years old and she could see what I'd been blind to for decades. Sometimes standing up for yourself means walking away from people who don't value you, Sophie continued. That's what you taught me when I had problems with Madison Chen at school. Remember? I remembered. Sophie had been getting bullied by a girl whose parents donated money to the school. I told her to document everything, report it properly, and if nothing changed, we'd find a school that protected her. We did. Sophie thrived at her new school. Dad, you deserve better than people who take advantage of your loyalty. 4 weeks later, sitting in that conference room, watching Ashley accept congratulations for a job she hadn't earned, Sophie's words echoed in my head. Something clicked inside me. Not anger, not sadness. Just clarity. Carl thought I needed this job. Thought I'd shut up because I had bills and a daughter and monthly payments. He was wrong about everything. I opened my laptop, started typing resignation letter. Hands were steady. Head was clear. For once in my life, I knew exactly what I was going to do. But first, I needed to understand exactly what Ashley was walking into. Over the next week, I compiled a detailed analysis of our regional operations. We managed 47 active supplier relationships across 6 states. Coordinated delivery of industrial components worth $47 million annually to 23 major clients. Each client had specific requirements for delivery windows, quality specifications, and emergency protocols. The Campbell manufacturing account alone required understanding of their just-in-time production schedule, backup supplier network for critical components, and emergency response procedures for equipment failures. I'd spent 4 years building that relationship. Lisa Campbell, their procurement manager, trusted me personally to keep their $2. $8 million operation running smoothly. Ashley had no idea this complexity existed. In her mind, operations meant checking emails and updating spreadsheets. She didn't understand that when Campbell's titanium component shipment was delayed by 6 hours, their entire production line would shut down. She didn't know that Border States equipment required all deliveries to arrive between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., or their receiving department would refuse the shipment. She'd never handled a supplier bankruptcy, equipment recalls, or federal transportation regulations. I submitted my resignation letter at exactly 4:30 p.m. Friday. Carl had just returned from walking Ashley around the warehouse, showing her what he called her domain. I knocked on his door, handed him the envelope. This is my 2 weeks' notice. Carl's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, then something that looked like panic. He tore open the envelope. Read quickly. Is this a joke? No, sir. You can't be serious. You're leaving because Ashley got the promotion? I stayed quiet. Let him fill the silence. Military discipline. Sometimes the best response is no response. Carl stood up, paced behind his desk. Ray, let's be reasonable here. You're upset, I get it. But walking away from 5 years of building your career, that's not smart. I've made my decision. What about your daughter? Your responsibilities? There it was, the leverage he thought he had. The reason I'd fall in line and keep quiet. I'll manage. Carl's tone shifted, got harder. You realize how this looks, right? Quitting because you didn't get promoted. It's unprofessional. Childish, I nodded. I can see how you'd think that. I won't give you a good reference. You understand that? Walking out like this, leaving us hanging. No company's going to want someone who throws tantrums. 5 years of perfect performance, and now I was throwing tantrums. 5 years of staying late and working weekends, and now I was unprofessional. That's your choice. Carl sat back down. Tried a different approach. Look, Ray, I like you. You're good at what you do. But Ashley brings something different to the table. Youth, fresh ideas, vision. Vision, I repeated. The board wants innovation, new thinking. Ashley represents the future of this company. And what do I represent? Carl paused. Experience, stability. Those are valuable too. Valuable enough to train his replacement. Not valuable enough to promote. I appreciate the clarification.
Don't do this, Ray.
Take the weekend. Think it over. Come back Monday and we'll pretend this conversation never happened. He genuinely believed I would back down. Believed that threatening my reference would make me fold. In Afghanistan, when insurgents threatened our supply convoys, we didn't negotiate. We found alternative routes. I'll finish out my 2 weeks. Train Ashley on anything she needs to know. Carl's face darkened. You'll train her? You think Ashley needs training from someone who quits when things don't go his way? She's going to need to understand the vendor contracts, the supply chain logistics, the emergency protocols, unless you plan to figure all that out yourself. That hit home. Carl knew he didn't understand the technical side of operations. Neither did Ashley. They needed me, at least for 2 more weeks. Fine, 2 weeks. But don't expect any favors. Don't expect me to help you land somewhere else. You're burning bridges here, Ray. I nodded and turned to leave. Ray, Carl called after me. You're making a mistake. A big one. I stopped at the door. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Monday morning brought revelations. I arrived early as usual and found Ashley already at her desk looking overwhelmed. She had spreadsheets open on 3 monitors and was frantically taking notes from vendor emails. Morning, Ashley. How's the transition going? She looked up, relief flooding her face. Ray, thank God. I've been here since 6 trying to understand the Campbell manufacturing account. Their procurement manager is threatening to cancel our contract if we don't resolve some shipping issue by noon. Campbell Manufacturing, our biggest client. They ordered heavy machinery components worth $2, $8 million annually. I'd been managing their account personally for 4 years, building the relationship through reliable service and understanding their just-in-time delivery requirements. What's the issue? Something about delayed titanium brackets from our supplier in Tucson, but I can't figure out which supplier, and their emails are confusing. I looked at Ashley's screen. She had Campbell's email open, but she was also looking at supplier contracts that had nothing to do with titanium brackets. She was drowning. Ashley, did your dad brief you on the Campbell account? He said you'd handle the transition, but then he mentioned your situation, and I thought maybe I should figure it out myself. Show initiative. My situation, that's what they were calling it now. I spent the next 3 hours walking Ashley through the Campbell relationship, explained how their just-in-time delivery requirements worked, why they needed components delivered within 4-hour windows, how their production line would shut down if we missed deadlines. Showed her the backup supplier network I'd built over 4 years, the emergency contact protocols, the quality control checkpoints. This is incredibly complex, Ashley said as we finished resolving the crisis. How do you keep track of all these moving parts? Experience, documentation, and understanding that every client relationship is built on trust that takes years to earn and minutes to lose. Could you show me your documentation system? That's when I realized something. Carl hadn't just promoted Ashley without preparation. He'd promoted her without understanding what the job actually required. Ashley wasn't incompetent, but she was completely unprepared for the scope of regional operations. I spent my lunch break making phone calls, reached out to contacts I'd built over the years. Word travels fast in industrial logistics, and people were already hearing about changes at Irongate. Ray, said Lisa Campbell, the procurement manager who'd threatened to cancel that morning. I heard rumors about management changes. Please tell me you're still handling our account. For the next 2 weeks. After that, Ashley Brennan will be your primary contact. Silence on the line. Brennan, as in Carl Brennan's daughter. That's right, Jesus, Ray. That girl called me this morning asking questions that made no sense. I thought she was new to the team, not replacing you. She's eager to learn. I don't have time to train Irongate's management. We've got production schedules to meet. If your company can't provide competent service, we'll find someone who can. That conversation repeated itself 5 times with 5 different major clients. Border States Equipment, Apex Manufacturing, Southwest Industrial, all saying the same thing. By the end of the day, I had a clearer picture of what would happen after I left. Ashley would struggle, clients would get frustrated. Carl would panic and try to micromanage operations he didn't understand. The whole regional division would start bleeding clients within 6 months. But that wasn't my problem anymore. Tuesday morning, Carl called me into his office. He looked tired, stressed. Ray, I've been thinking about our conversation Friday. Maybe we were hasty. Maybe there's room for both you and Ashley in management. Meaning, you could be associate director, Ashley's second in command. You'd handle the technical side, she'd focus on strategic planning. Associate director, a made-up title that meant doing the same job for the same pay while pretending Ashley was my boss. That's generous, but I'll stick with my original decision. Carl's face hardened. You're going to regret this, Ray. I promise you that. Maybe, but I'm done living in fear of your promises. By Wednesday, I had 4 job interviews scheduled. My plan went beyond simply leaving Irongate. I'd spent 5 years building relationships in the Southwest industrial supply chain. Those relationships were mine, not the company's. The Army taught me that logistics is about people, not just processes. Trust flows between individuals, not corporate entities. My first interview was Thursday morning with Apex Supply Systems, a renewable energy equipment distributor based in San Antonio. Their regional manager, Mike Sullivan, had been trying to poach me for 18 months. Ray, Mike said as we shook hands in his office, I heard through the grapevine that you might be available. Word travels fast. It does when good people become available, especially people with your client relationships and crisis management experience. Mike knew about the Cooper Industries emergency I'd handled 6 months ago. Helicopter delivery of hydraulic components that saved them $400,000 in downtime. That story had spread through industry circles, building my reputation as someone who could solve impossible logistics problems. Mike offered me a position as Regional Operations Director, the exact title Carl had given to Ashley. The salary was 35% higher than what I'd been making at Irongate, from $68,000 to $92,000. The benefits were better, and most importantly, they wanted me to bring my client network and expertise with me. We've been trying to break into the heavy machinery component market, Mike explained. Your relationships with Campbell Manufacturing and Border States Equipment would be invaluable. Plus, we need someone who understands emergency logistics protocols. It was ethical, standard industry practice. Clients followed account managers they trusted, especially in a relationship-based business like industrial supply. I hadn't signed a non-compete agreement, and the clients I'd served were free to choose their suppliers. I'd need to give Irongate 2 weeks' notice, of course. Professional courtesy, though I suspect they might release you early once they understand the situation. Mike was right about that. Friday afternoon, Carl called me into his office again. Ashley sat in the corner looking miserable. Apparently, word of my Thursday interview had reached them. "I hear you're interviewing with competitors," Carl said. "I'm exploring opportunities." "While you're still employed here, while you're training Ashley." That's a conflict of interest. I stayed quiet. Military training. Let him show his cards first. It's also corporate espionage, sharing proprietary information with competitors. I haven't shared any proprietary information. Your client relationships are proprietary. My client relationships are personal. I built them over 5 years of professional service. Carl's face was red now. Those clients belong to Irongate Industries. You take them with you and we'll sue you for everything you're worth. Ashley spoke up from the corner. "Dad, maybe we should..." "Shut up, Ashley." Carl didn't take his eyes off me. "Ray, you walk out that door and try to steal our clients, I'll make sure you never work in this industry again." I stood up slowly. The moment reminded me of convoy briefings in Afghanistan. Hostile territory ahead, but you execute the mission anyway. "Carl, I've given you 5 years of my life. Perfect performance reviews, 60-hour weeks. I trained your daughter to take the job you promised me. I've been nothing but professional through this entire process. And now you're threatening me. I'm protecting my business. I'm finishing my 2 weeks' notice and moving on to a better opportunity. What happens after that depends on how you handle the transition." Carl leaned back in his chair. "We'll see about that." I walked to the door, then turned back. "Ashley, if you need help with anything over the next week, just ask. Despite what your father thinks, I want you to succeed." Ashley nodded gratefully. Carl glared. I spent my last week at Irongate documenting everything Ashley would need to know. Not because Carl deserved it, but because Ashley was 24 years old and had been thrown into a situation beyond her control. The people who depended on our supply chains deserved better than chaos. Created detailed client profiles with contact preferences, delivery requirements, and relationship history. Mapped out supplier networks with backup options for critical components. Documented emergency protocols I'd developed over 5 years of crisis management. Left her a complete playbook for regional operations. Sophie noticed the change at home. "Dad, you seem different, more confident." "Just making some changes at work, honey." "Good changes. Does this mean we can finally take that vacation you promised?" "Actually, yes. Disney World, here we come." Her smile was worth everything. On my final day, I cleaned out my desk, said goodbye to coworkers, and handed Carl my security badge. "This isn't over," Carl said. "For me it is," I replied. I walked out of Irongate Industries feeling lighter than I had in years. Started at Apex Supply Systems the following Monday with a corner office, my own team, and the respect I'd earned but never received. The payback came 8 months later, but not in the way I'd expected. I was settling into my new role when Mike Sullivan called me into his office with a grin on his face. "Ray, you need to see this," he said, sliding a business magazine across his desk. The headline read, "Irongate Industries Regional Division Hemorrhages Clients, Family Drama Blamed." The article detailed how Irongate had lost 6 major accounts in 7 months, including Campbell Manufacturing and Border States Equipment. Revenue in the Southwest region was down 68%. The board had launched an investigation into management practices. "Carl Brennan was terminated last week," Mike said. Apparently, the board discovered that Ashley Brennan had been hired without proper qualifications. Nepotism investigation, they're calling it. I read further. Ashley had resigned voluntarily after 4 months of struggling with accounts she couldn't manage. She'd returned to graduate school. According to the article, Carl faced a lawsuit from Campbell Manufacturing for breach of contract after a supply chain failure caused a production delay that cost them $2. $2 million. Here's the interesting part, Mike continued. 4 of their remaining clients have already reached out to us, specifically asking if you're available to handle their accounts. The article mentioned that several former Irongate employees had been recruited by competitors, taking their institutional knowledge with them. No names were listed, but I recognized the pattern. When good people leave a company, others notice. What goes around comes around, Mike said. Carl Brennan spent 5 years taking you for granted. Now he's unemployed while you're building our Southwest division. I folded the magazine and handed it back. I feel bad for Ashley. Kid got thrown into a situation she wasn't ready for. Ashley will be fine. She's young, she'll learn from this. Carl, on the other hand, Mike shrugged. Hard to feel sorry for someone who threw away good people to promote family. 18 months later, I was driving through Dallas on business when I stopped for lunch at a diner near the airport. Ashley Brennan was sitting alone in a corner booth reading a textbook. She looked up when I approached. Ray, what are you doing here? Business trip. Mind if I sit? She gestured to the empty seat across from her. Ashley looked older, more serious. The textbook was Advanced Supply Chain Management. Back in school? Master's program at Texas A&M, Logistics Focus. She smiled ruefully. Figured I should actually learn what I was supposed to be doing. That's smart. I wanted to thank you, Ashley said, for how you handled everything. You could have hung me out to dry, but you didn't. You tried to help me succeed. You were in an impossible situation. Dad still blames you for everything. Says you sabotaged the company. I sipped my coffee. What do you think? Ashley closed her textbook. I think I was 24 years old with a business degree and no real-world experience. I think Dad gave me a job I wasn't qualified for because I was family. And I think you spent 5 years earning a promotion that should have been yours. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. I'm sorry about how everything went down, Ashley said. You deserved better. We both did. But sometimes things work out the way they're supposed to. Ashley nodded. I heard you're doing well at Apex. I am. And you'll do well too, once you're ready. I paid for both our lunches and shook Ashley's hand before leaving. She was a good kid who'd been used as a pawn in her father's game. 9 months later, Carl Brennan filed for bankruptcy after losing his wrongful termination lawsuit against Irongate's board of directors. Ashley graduated with honors and landed an entry-level position at a logistics company in Austin, where she spent 3 years learning the business from the ground up before earning her first real promotion. The daughter had learned what the father never understood. That respect and advancement must be earned, not inherited. Sophie's starting her sophomore year at UT now. Full academic scholarship. She tells people her dad taught her that sometimes walking away takes more courage than staying. Smart kid. Sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and building something better. When people ask me how I knew it would work out, I tell them the truth. I didn't know. But I knew staying would have killed something inside me that I couldn't afford to lose. At 50, I'm making more money than I ever thought possible. Got my own team now. Regional director with profit sharing and equity options. Young people who remind me that experience matters, but only if you're willing to fight for it when it counts. The Army taught me that logistics win wars. Turns out they win careers too. But the most important lesson I learned wasn't from the military or the corporate world. It came from my 17-year-old daughter. You deserve better than people who take advantage of your loyalty. Carl was right about one thing. I am valuable, just not to him.